Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the number one podcast in the Southeast, the Footy Ramble. I am your host, Matt, and I'm joined by my co-host, Rocky. How you going, mate?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. So, this week on episode 8 of the Footy Ramble, episode 8, time seems to have
Who
flown.
would have thought we would have got this far to episode 8?
Yeah, already, to be fair, it feels like just yesterday we started this. But today we're going to be talking about mandatory vaccines in the AFL. As we know, during the week, they made it mandatory that all AFL players and staff will have to be vaccinated before they go back to training pre-season. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to also talk about crowd capacity as Dan Andrews unveils the rest of his roadmap and what that means for the sport next season. And some other general footy news with some, Easton Wood retiring this week and stuff like that. And we're also going to be talking about rule changes, just as general topics this week. And we're also going to wrap it up with talking about what's next for the Footy Ramble and also announce our new big announcement that we've kind of come up with during the week. So we'll start off with mandatory vaccines. So what are your stance on mandatory vaccines, Rocky, for all AFL players?
So my stance on mandatory vaccines is that it should be mandatory for the following reasons. So I believe that the vaccinations, they protect not only yourself, but most importantly, your family, your footy teammates, the staff, and all those around you, right? But not just when it comes to footy, but also if you just look at it from a healthcare point of view, hospitals are overflowing with people. So if footy players, if they get vaccinated, right, then they are helping ease a little bit of pressure off the healthcare system. And because obviously people look up to this league and to the players, if they're getting vaccinated, then the likelihood is that more people will get vaccinated. So yeah, look, I understand that some people are like, oh, well, we shouldn't be forced to get vaccinated. We shouldn't be we shouldn't be forced. It shouldn't be made mandatory. But the reality is we want to get out of this as soon as possible, and in order to get out of it, we have to get vaccinated regardless. And yeah, I mean, and it's a good thing to get vaccinated. It's not a bad thing. The vaccines, it's safe. It's pretty normal to me, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's really nothing for anybody to worry about. And I mean, majority of people have gotten vaccinated. We're almost at 90% first dose, or I think almost there. Yeah,
we are past 90% first dose.
Yeah.
And to follow on what you were saying, it gives, I think it's a bit of a sense of duty for all of them to get it. So I think even if they didn't make it mandatory, majority, when I say majority, 95% of the players and staff would have got it anyway. I don't know if they really needed to make it mandatory as such to force the players and staff into getting it. But I just think that people are going to be more protected if it's logical. You get vaccinated, you become more immune, you protect yourselves and the people around you. It's simple logic. And the playing group, majority of the playing groups in between 20 and 35, which is the age group that have the most hospitalizations, the most people that have COVID are in that age group, so that they're part of the group that are the most vulnerable to getting this virus. And we've seen effects from all around the world where people still have, even in Australia, people are still feeling the effects of living with coronavirus, even months, or because it's been that long, a year and a half of, being cured. Well, not cured as such, but getting over the coronavirus. There's still people that experience the dizziness, the fatigue, the shortness of breath, all that stuff. So I think for for themselves, for the people around them, they will just get vaccinated anyway. I don't know if it needed to be made mandatory, but I just think that most of the people would have done it anyway. But my question to you is that we talk about the 95% that probably will get it. Will any of the 5% who I don't really want to say anti-vaxxers, but are hesitant about getting the vaccine, do you reckon any of them will pull out of the AFL and stuff like that?
Yeah, probably, because it seems like when it comes to these when it comes to the people that don't want to get the vaccination, they have like a really strong stance on it, like a really, really strong stance on it. So like the likelihood of them pulling out of the AFL and quitting is pretty likely. But then again, it's like, what are they going to do after that? Because a lot of industries require you to get vaccinated, so it's like, why would you just, like, you kind of have no choice but to get vaccinated. And it's not like, yeah, and I mean, I said it before, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to get vaccinated. It's the best thing that you could possibly do right now for yourself and for those around you. So of course, we'll probably talk about this soon, but obviously we saw like a few footy players talk about it, and they're saying it shouldn't be made mandatory. And I agree with you what you said. It maybe it shouldn't be made mandatory, but like, I think making it mandatory increases the chances of more footy players getting vaccinated, because who knows, it could have been 90% before, and now it'd be not 95%. You know what I mean? Yep. So yeah, I mean, I think naturally, like, these guys, they also travel a lot. They were staying in hubs, and obviously with crowds coming back, you'd want the players to be vaccinated. Like, if the crowds have to be vaccinated, then yep, the footy players should be as well, and staff and all of them.
Well, that makes a good point, because if we have to be vaccinated to go to the footy, how are they any better than us? Because I mean, they got to travel around the country a lot more than what we did. Obviously, they weren't doing it for leisure or for, when they were able to travel, they were allowed to go everywhere. They were still under pretty harsh lockdown wherever they went. But they got to, they actually did get to leave their state and stuff like that. So, a bit of a sacrifice of them could be to maybe get the vaccine. That could have been like a viewpoint of a few people. And I think the AFL stars coming out and, saying, and I think the biggest thing for what I've seen as a trend, I know Nick Nat said it, I know Tom McDonald said it, a lot of players are saying that they're getting the vaccine for others, not necessarily for themselves, which I think kind of, I don't want to rant on this too much, but it's like a bit of showing of the Aussie spirit, in the sense that, like, we look out for our fellow man, because I reckon that a lot of people would be hesitant to get the vaccine, but they're getting it because they know that maybe it might not be, maybe they could take the risks for themselves and get away with it, but for the people around them, if they have the vaccine, that means they're less likely to get it, which means that the people around them are less likely to get it. So I think it is, good camaraderie that everyone's getting around, getting the vaccine. And I think that the AFL is doing the right thing by making it mandatory.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I mean, yeah, obviously, I mean, when you say when those players say they're not getting it for themselves, they're getting it for others, I mean, you have to get it for yourself. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because it protects you as well. Like, you don't get the vaccine and it only protects others, it protects yourself as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, obviously the main idea is that, you get it for yourself, but you're also protecting everyone you're around. And obviously, as footy players, they've all got, pretty, huge circles of people, and staff, the coaches, their playing mates and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I think when it comes to, to pretty much just answer the question, like, mandatory vaccines, yes. Did they have to do it? Maybe not, but it's probably a good thing that they did anyways, just so it's like, okay, yeah, go and get vaccinated. So it means more people are protecting themselves and everyone else around them. And it also influences, like, for example, if one player gets it, their family will get it, and then someone else's family will get it. So, it's just, yeah, like a chain of people getting vaccinated starts. So yeah. it's definitely a good thing.
Yeah, so we touched on it a little bit in that mandatory vaccines segment, but I want to push on to crowd capacity. So it was announced during the week, I've got it here, that once Victoria hits 90% a full vaccination mark, all density limits will be scrapped and masks will only be mandatory indoors. And then Dan Andrews has said that he wants to see 80,000 plus people at the Boxing Day test on day one. And they've also announced as part of that roadmap that no capacity or density quotients for fully vaccinated patrons at major events. So from that, basically what he's saying is that we will have, not only for cricket season, for footy season next year, we will have full crowds, no caps, no limits. And apparently, according to that, we won't even need to be wearing masks. So what do you make of that news?
I'm very happy because we have to live with this, right? Like, we can't just keep on living, and being like, oh, we'll come up with this one solution. Okay, that didn't work. Okay, we'll have to go back into lockdown. You know what I mean? Like he said, and the national plan, national plan, state plan, it all coincides where, once you reach a certain percentage, we will ease restrictions. We reach another milestone, we'll ease restrictions. We reach another milestone, we ease restrictions. So when it comes to, no limits on capacity, everything it's pretty much back to normal for sporting events. To be honest, I couldn't be happier, and I mean it's about time. I mean we have to live with this. Like we really can't be, living our lives going, lockdown, wearing masks everywhere, and all that kind of stuff. So it's good that we will have a full crowd capacity for pretty much all sporting events because of people getting vaccinated. So as long as we reach those milestones, all the things that he's obviously announced will be achievable. So yeah, what are your thoughts?
Well, yeah. To be fair, I think the mask rules, I wouldn't mind wearing a mask if I have to go and take it off if we have to drink or eat or something. Like, I don't think masks are the end of the world if we have to do that. But I think you're right in, I've been saying myself that we've had to live with this for ages because we've had 246 days in lockdown or whatever the total ended up being. When do we say enough is enough and we just bite the bullet? And I know that case numbers will rise. I know there'll be risks for everyone. There'll be risks for my family just as much as the next. But where does the mental side of things start to, outweigh the needs of the physical side in terms of, I'm not catching corona, but I'm getting driven insane by the fact that the only way I can interact with people is over a Zoom call or school. You're paying uni to just do from home, and I think that affects AFL as well. It's great to watch it over TV, but it's like everything else. I can talk to friends online for hours, but it's not the same as seeing it in person. I think AFL is exactly the same. You don't get the atmosphere, the experience, the joy of anywhere near as much watching it through a TV as you do in live. So I'm all for us having full crowd capacities.
There's nothing like going to, there's nothing like going to, your team's games, and because I remember I went to quite a lot of games for Essendon, obviously early in the year, and so not early in the footy season, and even though there was 15,000, 20,000 people, 25,000, I can't really remember, the atmosphere was insane. So just imagine, 40,000, 50,000, 60,000, geez, so I'm pretty happy with this. And you're right about the whole mental side, but people gonna see. I mean, you can still catch COVID. It's not, but if you're vaccinated, the effects won't be as harmful. It's it's the same thing with I'm not saying COVID is the flu, and I'm not saying flu is cold. I'm just saying you can still catch the flu, you can still get a cold. You can still exhibit pretty much similar symptoms to all three of these viruses, which I don't know if that's a controversial statement. It's just how it is. You know what I mean? You still have to get a flu vaccine. You know what I mean?
Well, Yeah, so I think it also comes down to a little bit of honesty policy, and this will be the toughest thing for everyone. Is like if you're sick, like as much as you want to get to the footy, but if you're sick and you're exhibiting cold flu-like symptoms, then it may be corona. Don't be selfish and rock up to the game to infect, a couple of people who infect other people who infect other people. It's gonna take a lot of self-responsibility to say, hey, look, I'm not 100% healthy today. I can't go to the game. And I think that's the biggest reliance on these restrictions, is that the people have to do the right thing. And I'm hoping that everyone will do the right thing. But I mean, you know, Carlton fans won't need much of an excuse because they probably don't even want to go watch their team some days. They're that poor. Or Essendon fans, or Collingwood
I
fans.
I really thought I really thought we were gonna hold up a roasting for this episode, and
No,
then
we're
you
not.
had to bring in Essendon. Hey, look, I don't know about Carlton fans, I don't know about all those other teams, but I know for Essendon fans, we do rock up. But that's not the point.
Yeah. Point is, if you're
Yeah,
sick,
go on.
stay home.
No, yeah, of course. Like it's just like when you get sick in general, like whether it doesn't matter whether it's COVID or flu or you're getting a cold or whatever. If you feel under the weather, stay home. That is like advisable no matter what, because you don't want to spread the sickness to anybody. It's like when you go to school, you don't when you and you're not feeling that, you don't go to school. What I mean, you stay at home most of the time. So
Yeah, if every
so
if
yeah.
every if everyone had the same diligence as a teenager who was sick, who didn't want to go to school, who at the drop of like, oh yeah, I got a little boogie. Ah, yeah, not gone to school. If everyone was like
Oh
that,
man, yeah.
but for everything else, then we would not have a problem with this. But hey, that's a whole nother topic, and we said we wouldn't get political. But one
Yes.
thing I do want to say is that so long as everyone does the right thing, and there has to be appropriate measures in place, like to be fair, if it means I can go to the football, I do not mind wearing a mask. I do not mind checking into every single, like if I have to check in at the front gate, check in into the section I'm sitting in, check into the level I'm sitting in. If I have to check in 3 or 4 times in the MCG, I will not mind doing it if it means that I get to go and see a game, right?
It takes like 2 seconds anyways.
Yeah, like
It's not that long.
your details are saved in there anyway. All you do,
Exactly.
go up, check the QR code and then press enter, and you're set, right? It may take a little bit longer because people might have to verify that you've got a double vaccine passport and stuff like that, but it should be pretty easy.
Yeah. Look, maximum 30 seconds. If they ask you for your thing, it's already there on, like,
Yeah,
if you had the MyGov app or if you've downloaded it, it's already there when you check in. Like, I've
yeah,
added it to the check-in
to
app.
the
So
Service
yeah,
Victoria, yeah. So, I mean,
exactly.
look, it will it we have plenty of time to fix it up, so it needs to be done right. But I have no objection with having full crowds at the footy.
No, I have no objection about any of the current, the current climate that we're in. I really don't mind at all. Mandatory
Yeah,
vaccines, yes. Full crowd capacity, yes. Like, we're getting back to normal. Majority of people are more than happy to get vaccinated. If I'm being honest, like, nobody's really complaining.
mm.
Um, it's just
Well,
a
other
small
than
minority.
small minority, but yeah. Anyway, we're going to move on to a little bit of a more AFL directed topic. And these are the times of years where we've done a lot of season reviews. So as a part of the season review, we actually wanted to do a season review in a sense on the rules. So we looked at we look back at the season and we have a look. What would be one rule that you didn't like this year?
The stand rule, that was so, like, it worked. I think it worked majority of the season, but it's not really fair. What I mean, it's more than easy for the player to just run around the mark and kick. It's like, but like, I just don't understand why that is allowed. But one thing I didn't like was, like, see, they would, because sometimes the player would be moving on the mark, right?
Mm,
He's not standing. Like, the umpire says stand, and he'll say like 2 or 3 times. Like, I noticed this in a few games. I can't really remember, but I noticed that a few times, and I was like, "Is there a 50-meter penalty?" Like, I'm so confused. I don't really know what happens. You know what I mean? So, um, the stand rule was pretty frustrating. I don't know about your thoughts on that. Like, it was pretty consistent throughout, but it did get a bit like stand, and it's like they're not really standing.
I went back and watched the other day the 2020 prelim, 2020 qualifying final. So like, sometimes go back and just watch old games, And I was looking at that. I actually don't mind the stand rule because like the fact that players will stand on the mark, like will go up to the mark and then able to just move laterally with no, like,
Yeah.
Because I think that if you want an advantage, you can run off your mark, like off the line of your mark to try and like get an extra kick and like to get an extra couple of meters because a lot of people run out and try and hook it that way. So I think that that's fine, but it gives you a disadvantage if the person is moving side to side on the mark because someone could just move to cover you off and, block you. And there's no point in you running around anyway. I think that the one thing that needs, I'll just say that the one thing I think needs to get worked on is that the umpires have to call it straight away. So as soon as you move off the mark, it gives you equal opportunities. So if you call it pretty much straight away, the player gets the chance to run around the hook, but the player on the mark who's been standing still, who gave him the opportunity to run around, if he's quick enough, can get across, right? But it needs to be called straight away because, as you said, sometimes the umpires are so slow on calling it that they're like past them by the time they call play on, which that's what I don't think the rule is for. I think it is for the fact that they want them to have the opportunity to run around and hook the ball without the player getting in their way, but if they're quick enough, can get there. So I think that rule's fine, but
I was going to say that
call it earlier.
100%, yeah. Sometimes they do delay in calling stand, and by the time they do that, sometimes the player's already played on. So and one thing that I find annoying is like when a player plays on, right? You can't like, and they go out of their line, so they're just running with the ball. You can't make the player keep standing there. Like they should be able to say play on and run off their mark. Like they shouldn't just have to stand there with their hands in the air. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Right?
So they've got to be really quick on it. That's my thing. Is that it's fine. The rule's okay, but the umpires have to just be quicker on it. If for me, the one rule that needs to get clarified is, well, one, you could almost say two. One, holding the ball, because I don't even know what holding the ball means anymore. And two, deliberate out of bounds. Like there was, who was it? It was Cam Zurhaar. I think it was. Cam Zurhaar's tried to kick the ball, and this just sums up perfectly. Tries to kick the ball from about 40 out on the run against Collingwood, and it comes off the side of his boot, rolls out of bounds. So you're thinking at the time, he's had a shot, he's just mongreled it, it's gone out of bounds, nothing. They paid deliberate for that, or insufficient intent, whatever they call it now. Like, how is that insufficient? He wasn't trying.
I would have smashed my TV.
He wasn't trying to kick the ball out of bounds. He's just trying to kick for goal, and it's like a bit of a dodgy kick. That's all it was. But the umpires still insist on paying like insufficient intent. So the insufficient intent rule for me, I'm almost I don't want to see it I don't want to see the rule become last person who touches it loses it, because then a lot of teams will not try and use the wings as much, because you can either have because it would be impossible to adjudicate in the sense that like Harris Andrews as a defender, he's the number one spoiler in the competition. So if part of our defensive strategy is if someone kicks it down the line, Harris can come over the top and spoil it out of bounds and, create a stoppage. If we make it that the last person touches it, can't use it anymore. He can't punch it that way. He'll be punching it into the middle, which will mean, higher scoring games, but, it will be a lot more cluttered and stuff. So I just think that insufficient intent has to change, in my opinion.
Yeah, because how is the umpire going to know whether the player intended to hit it out or not?
To hit it out,
that is just so dumb to me. Like the umpires, let's take this literally, right? The umpires are not psychic. Like they're not going to be able to guess whether a player has kicked it out, or tapped it out of bounds on purpose. Like how do you actually? Sometimes they don't call the obvious ones though. I noticed sometimes there's always obvious ones and they don't call it, and it's like.
Well, I'd rather them not call it than call it in that sense. Like the boundary, the boundary line, as long as you don't abuse it, the boundary line was always good, because even when I was playing footy, we were always taught, put it out to the wings, bring it down the line. Worst comes to, so that was my strategy. If we're ever trying to transition from the back, put it out wide, right? If the corridor kicks on, kick it into the corridor, but keep it down the wings, because we weren't a tall team. So if you can't get a mark, you can put it over the boundary line, and then it can reset with a stoppage, right? That's how we were always taught. But if you start bringing in this insufficient intent, everyone's going to start crowding the corridor, trying to keep off the wings, and it's just going to become really congested and clunky like all the time. So I just think that insufficient intent has to be like deliberate. Back in the old days was fine with me. Like if a player, like, you know, it should almost be that if a player is not in the vicinity. So, you know, if say I kick the ball and there's no and it's gone out of bounds, but there's no player within 20 meters, well, there's probably a good chance that I'm, you know, just kicking it. Unless see, that's the thing, because I could have kicked it out there trying to let someone run onto it or something. So it's a really difficult rule.
Yeah, exactly. It is a difficult rule, and sometimes the umpires don't play correctly. I want to talk about the holding the ball rule as well. There's always a few interpretations about this. Sometimes the umpire says there was no prior. Sometimes they say, you know, when they don't pay holding the ball, they say, oh, you know, there was no prior, so he didn't get to handball it off. He dragged it in, so that's holding the ball. There's always so many rules, and there's always so many interpretations of holding the ball. One thing that annoys me about holding the ball is that it's I mean, we've already pretty much the rules that we're talking about. There's obviously inconsistent calls with them, but and holding the ball has always been extremely inconsistent. Like as a TV viewer, right? It's so the guy gets run down, right? But he literally just got handballed the ball. So like he didn't have he maybe had a second, but like obviously it's not enough to make up your mind and handball it off, right?
Yeah.
So the umpire calls that holding the ball, and it's like, what?
Yeah.
Like how was that holding the ball? He didn't even get a chance to handball it off. But then the next play, a similar thing might happen, and they'll say, "Oh, no prior, ball up," and it's like, but you just call that one, you know?
Yeah.
So there's always it's probably, I don't know about you, but it's probably the most inconsistent calls.
Yeah, that is for sure, because you can't not have holding the ball, because then no one would tackle. Everyone would just start corralling because there'd be no point in tackling.
Yeah.
But you can't be too trigger happy on it, because then it'd be like hot potato. No one would want the ball. So
exactly,
finding that balance is really tough. And to be honest, I don't have the solution now, but maybe we can say this is what we'll do. When this goes up at 9 o'clock on Tuesday, or when everyone's listening to this, go to our Instagram, and on the Instagram there will be a poll or a viewer response area. Put in what you think should be the holding the ball rule, and we'll read out some of the responses next week, because I'm interested to see what all the audience thinks of the holding the ball rule, because to be honest, I don't like it, but I don't know how to fix it. So if anyone has any ideas on the holding the ball rule, go to our Instagram at the Footy Ramble, go and put in what you think the holding the ball rule should be, and we'll talk about them in next week's episode.
Sounds good.
So on that note, we'll push on to some other general footy news. So we've only got one thing here. Easton Wood has called time in his career, 188 games for the Bulldogs. I do want to say, though, he memed the absolute hell out of someone. So did you hear what he said about the double vax comment?
No, I did not. What did he say?
So some guy comes on and goes, AFL introduced mandatory vaccines. 24 hours later, that St Kilda lady, that their best and fairest winner, takes time off for her career, and Easton Wood retires, right? So he was saying that basically those two didn't want to get the jab, and that's why they left. And then the funniest part was Easton Wood found the comment and goes and replied to the bloke and said, "Oh, I'm double vax champ." He's not only just like, oh yeah, completely like proven you wrong, but he's also just hit you with the double vaccinated and champed him at the end. So what an alpha move by Easton Wood. But point is, very decorated career, premiership captain in the place of Bob Murphy. And, I think that loss will be felt at the Bulldogs. But the way he said that, I wasn't just rocking up for a paycheck. I do have admiration for, it wasn't just for the money for him. He enjoyed playing AFL and he didn't want to negatively impact the Bulldogs by having another contract next year. So I think that Easton Wood retiring is a somber moment, and he seems like a pretty good bloke. So congrats to Easton Wood's career.
Easton Wood, obviously he's a legend, especially during the 2016 grand final. Yeah. He was their captain as well during that time too. I don't know. You pretty much summed it up pretty well. And the double backs comment's pretty funny. I know people like to kind of just assume, but when you get absolutely roasted, it's very satisfying.
Yeah, Easton Wood just absolutely roasts him. So to wrap out this week's episode of the Footy Ramble, we wanted to talk about what's next for the Footy Ramble. So we have so obviously next few months off season until we get back into it next March, April with the footy season. So we're open to hear everyone's ideas. So we've got ideas on what we want to talk about. We want to talk about topics like we did today, where it's not necessarily all AFL related. We'd want to talk about some general AFL topics like we did. So we have a few ideas for that. But we also want to mention that our Instagram also has plenty of content there. I know you love doing your little reels that you chuck up there. We get, that gets a few laughs. We did a trivia, sort of a mini trivia thing the other day that seemed to get a lot of feedback and results, which is good. And then we also often put up, feedback and do little Q&As on there. That because we love hearing from the audience what you guys want to talk about, or what you want to hear us talk about, or who you want to see on the Footy Ramble. So even if those things aren't there, feel free to always DM us at the Footy Ramble. Tell us what you want to see, what you want to, or people you want to see on the podcast, or even if you have any ideas and you want to hop on and talk about them. We're always open to that. But on that note, should we announce the big announcement? Should we say?
Yeah, sure. So pretty much we're going to do a new trivia tournament. So obviously we did our mini quiz and all that on our story, as Matt mentioned before. But now it's like a proper big trivia tournament, and there will be a prize. Not sure what it is. It's to be announced. Entries start right now and they'll close in 2 weeks. So to enter, follow us on Instagram at the Footy Ramble. Tag 3 people in the comments on the post. And get your mates involved, your family, whoever. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
To expand on that, we'll chuck a post up at the time that this is out. So we're recording this on the Monday, so it won't be out now. But Tuesday 9 a.m. there will be a post out announcing this trivia. So what we want you to do is comment on that post, tag 3 people to enter, and we'll list everyone. And then in 2 weeks, it's going to be like a knockout tournament, we'll say. So we'll partner everyone up. We'll get you guys all onto at certain points to go through your tournament brackets, and then it'll be best of 9. So first to 5 points will win the round and progress through, and we'll do like a knockout, and then obviously we'll give out the prize, which will be announced shortly. Get around that, get around the rest of the stuff on all of our socials. We can't wait to hear your feedback and see all those entries.
Yeah, 100%. That's pretty much it. And make sure, yeah, when it comes to feedback, you can DM us, or you can we'll probably put up like a feedback slot on our story. So and we'll do that probably tomorrow. So within the next 24 hours, it'll be up on our story, and you can provide us feedback. There were a couple. One of them being about like our quality and all that. For now, we are on Zoom, so like the quality won't be as good, but we will move into person in the near future. Once once restrictions and
exams, namely,
all that kind of stuff. Yeah, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, at the moment we'll be over Zoom. But yeah, stay tuned because there'll be more announcements and more progression of our podcast in the future as well. So yeah.
On that note, do you want to wrap us up, mate?
Sure. So yeah, thanks everyone for watching. This is Footy Ramble. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at the Footy Ramble. Follow us on Spotify, the Footy Ramble, and YouTube, the Footy Ramble.
We're the Footy Ramble, if you haven't figured out by now.
Just in case you guys didn't know, we are the Footy Ramble. So that's episode 8. Tune in next week. Actually, the next few weeks are really exciting. There's a lot of exciting things coming up. Obviously,
a lot of special guests.
100%.
Well.
Yeah, some maybe extra special. So yeah.
We've got to gas them up, I suppose. I mean, we wouldn't be doing our jobs if we weren't gassing these people up.
Yeah, true that. So yeah, this has been the Footy Ramble. We are your hosts, Rocky and Matt, and yeah, hope you enjoyed.